Nicolas Hulscher, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for all of your work. What we have to discuss today is extremely troubling, and I'm just very grateful that you and Dr. Peter McCullough and the McCullough Foundation have continued with this important work and research because we need accountability and we need answers. And there's a lot that we need to dig into today, including Bill Gates and Epstein coordinating global pandemics. But first and foremost, let's start with the result of some of this coordination of these pandemics. We have a breaking study. Vaccine, mRNA, plasmid DNA, and spike protein can persist in humans more than 3.5 years after COVID injections. Nick, talk us through this. This is shocking.
Yes, this is very shocking, and this is probably the strongest case report ever done on COVID-19 vaccine injury. And we have proven without a reasonable doubt that the mRNA injection components, including the literal mRNA, the plasmid DNA, and the resulting spike protein, can last in the human body for over 3.5 years. And that's just as far as we looked. And so this particular patient had over 200 diagnostic laboratory and imaging studies, 40 emergency room visits. He's had over 200 specialist consultations across 18 distinct specialty domains clinically. And he's had a multi-system post-vaccination syndrome. He received 3 Pfizer mRNA injections. Literally, his entire body began to collapse. He got myocarditis, MRI confirmed, pulmonary embolism, dermatological disturbances, neurological disturbances, psychiatric, hearing loss. All sorts of bodily systems began to fail. And so across multiple time points, multiple laboratories, spanning over 3 years after his injection, we found repeatedly vaccine spike protein in the skin, in his circulating exosomes. We found the spike protein was literally embedded in this region of Grover's disease in his skin. And then we had vaccine mRNA found in his exosomes over 3.5 years after the shot. So the mRNA is not degrading. There's still at least fragments of it. And then the plasmid DNA literally embedded in his skin, embedded in there in the Grover's disease lesions, all segments of it, the SV40, the ORIs, or the origin of replication insertion sequences, as well as the spike encoding sequences of the DNA. So all of these components were in there, confirmed multiple tests. And lastly, there was no possibility this was from the infection. He's had 5 antibody tests. 5 of them. All 5 were negative for the nucleocapsid, and the nucleocapsid was not found in his skin when we looked, only the spike protein. So, yeah, we were lied to, and, I expect lawsuits to begin to flood in.
Let me ask you, you're saying that it's also persistent in his exosomes. Does this mean that 3.5 years later, and in his skin, 3.5 years later, he's still shedding?
Yeah, it's entirely possible because that is the mechanism we believe that shedding occurs is through, exhalation of exosomes. And so it is entirely possible he could still be shedding the spike protein or vaccine genetic material.
This infuriates me for a number of reasons. Obviously, we were told that this stays in the injection site, and this is why it's so important to continue with this work that you have been. We were told this stays in the injection site. People were mandated to get this. Many people lost much of their livelihood and savings and families for refusing this, and yet 3.5 years later we have an example of someone potentially still shedding. That is so it infuriates me for the people that got the injections, but also those who refused and lost so much, Nick. I can't begin to explain how sinister this is. Okay, so let's go through some of this. as some of the I guess the technical aspects of this. The paper is titled "Unprecedented Persistence of Vaccine mRNA, Plasmid DNA, Spike Protein, and Genomic Dysregulation Over 3.5 Years Post-COVID-19 mRNA Vaccination." You detailed there over 40 emergency department visits, so on and so forth. What does this mean here for the audience? The findings reveal longitudinal molecular evidence that vaccine-derived mRNA, plasmid DNA fragments, and spike protein can persist in human blood and tissue more than 3.5 years after vaccination. I mean, how do we extrapolate that from one case?
Yeah, this is one case, but the thing about this one case is he's literally had hundreds upon hundreds of tests, and this almost never occurs. No patient willingly goes through this number of tests except this particular patient, and we thank him for that because we were able to find out that this can happen, right? So yeah, it's one patient, but that means in some individuals who have received Pfizer or Moderna genetic gene transfer injections, that they still may have all three of the vaccine components inside of them, the spike, the mRNA, and the plasmid DNA. And, according to this case, we don't know if it will ever leave his body.
Wow. We actually don't know if this will ever leave his body, meaning we don't know as well the question of, will everybody that received these injections continue shedding forever?
Exactly. We don't know the answer to that question, but based on this extraordinarily comprehensive case, we suspect that it can definitely happen indefinitely in some individuals who receive these shots. We have no clue how many will be like this case, but nobody's looked. Nobody's done hundreds of tests on really anybody else.
Right.
Our CDC's not doing it. Our FDA's not doing it. They're just injecting 6-month-olds with this garbage.
Yeah.
And so at the McCullough Foundation, in collaboration with the Inmodia Lab in Germany, Neo7 Bioscience, and a hospital in Germany, we decided to do this. And this is what we found. So we really are doing what the CDC should be doing among thousands of patients.
Here's another question for you. The case presentation says, obviously, this is a 55-year-old male, received 3 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 mRNA injection, subsequently developed progressive multi-organ dysfunction consistent with post-COVID vaccine syndrome, involving cardiopulmonary, neurologic, musculoskeletal, gastrointestinal, autonomic, and a whole bunch of other words there that I won't even attempt to pronounce, Nick. But my question is, people may see this and say, okay, well, I received those shots. I don't have all of those symptoms. Would I also be in the same boat as this individual? And the answer I presume, is that we don't know.
Yeah, the problem is we don't know. We really just don't know. Now, this is a clear-cut case of this post-vaccination syndrome where it affects all the organ systems. So he definitely got a potent batch. It would be, we could assume basically that, if you do have lots of multi-system dysfunction after you receive these shots, it's entirely possible you could still have these components within you. But even people with just one symptom, like they got myocarditis, heart damage, or they suffered, just dizziness or POTS or things like that, it's still also plausible that they may still have some of these components. We just don't know.
Wow. I want to take people through the specimen collection and analytical methods. You can see here that blood and skin tissue specimens were obtained at multiple time points between 852 and 1,364 days after the final Pfizer injection. Biological compartments analyzed include plasma, circulating exosomes, peripheral blood mononuclear cells, and skin tissue. And then you can see that specimens were evaluated across multiple independent laboratories using diverse analytical methodology. Help me with that word, Nick. Methodologies, thank you. Apologies, I'm reading so quickly. And including ELISA. And you can see here an extensive list of all of these tests and everything that was done for this individual. So as you said, really, we don't have anything like this. This is a first in the world example, and really should be what the CDC or the FDA are doing, considering the gravity of what happened with the COVID injections.
Yes, it's exactly. And you're right. You showed that list there. I mean, there are so many tests. I mean, it's crazy that nobody's bothered to do this. Especially, we had nonprofits with billions of dollars to spend. We have Gates Foundation. They don't do this. We have the World Health Organization. They don't do anything like this. All the health organizations and governmental organizations or agencies that should be doing this are just not bothering to do it. But here we go. We have done it. And it is important to really solidify at least one case before we move on to the large scale, detections of these. And so now that it's proven with this large battery of tests across multiple biospecimens, multiple methods, it's basically confirmed that, yeah, this can last in people for years. And so now, yeah, it's time to start looking at the population level, larger sample sizes. The CDC better do this, and big pharma, when they, and people who went on TV are public health leaders from 2021, they would all continuously claim this is short-lived. The vaccine your body will eliminate it within a few days to a week. And there's still individuals that keep claiming that. And it's all false. It's now all verifiably proven false, fraudulent claims. And so, yeah, I would be afraid if I were still pushing this now, despite this evidence, for fear of legal action.
Absolutely. Another question for you. Does this give us any answers as to whether all mRNA products would be this way? Obviously, the COVID-19 spike protein mRNA product was one thing, but is this something particular where mRNA is concerned, where they could inject something into someone and have it constantly replicate forever, regardless of what they're being injected for, including, by the way, the mRNA injections they're giving to our pets now?
Yes, exactly. So this has implications for all mRNA technology, cancer mRNA shots, Nipah virus mRNA shots, bird flu mRNA shots. They're all going to do the same thing. They're going to last for years. Your body won't be able to clear them, and it can cause multi-system organ dysfunction and basically cause debilitating disability for a seemingly unlimited period of time. So yeah, all mRNA technology will face the same disastrous consequences.
A question for you on the persistent spike protein and plasmid DNA in the skin tissue. So you've included, the results from these types of tests from the study. Does this mean, Nick, and I hate to put it this way, but that hugging someone who got the injection even this many years later could result in shedding?
It's plausible. It's plausible if the person you hug has all of these vaccine components still within them, still in their exosomes. It's entirely plausible that close bodily contact or exchanging bodily fluids, like so if it's your wife or girlfriend or husband, etc. Yeah, it's possible these materials could still transfer, unfortunately.
Around the world, governments and major tech companies are moving rapidly towards digital identification systems. Apple launched theirs, Europe is rolling out theirs, and once these systems are fully in place, they won't just verify who you are, they'll be able to dictate what you can do. That's where this is heading. A world where access to your own money, travel, medical care, even basic services can be switched on or off based on your compliance. And if all your wealth sits inside a digital system that someone else controls, you don't really control it. That's why so many Americans are turning to physical gold and silver, real freedom money that cannot be frozen, tracked, or turned off by any digital authority. Genesis Gold Group's brand new Digital ID Resistance Wealth Guide breaks down exactly what digital IDs mean for your financial future and how physical precious metals can help protect you before these systems become the new normal. Don't wait until the switch flips. Get your free Digital ID Resistance Wealth Guide right now at dailypulsegold.com. Again, that link is dailypulsegold.com. Wow. Wow. I mean, these were all suspicions that we had previously. I guess it's just now the fact that it's confirmed. I do want to ask you about some of the moves that we see being made right now. The US recently announced that it's ended its relationship with the WHO. However, our investigations and that of investigative journalist John Fleetwood show that actually, no, the US is still collaborating with the WHO where it comes to the influenza pandemic, which of course is also incorporates bird flu and vaccinations around that. We also have $500 million being directed by the US for further bird flu research, gain of function still going on. And now we have the WHO that we just reported this yesterday, just conducted a pandemic scenario exercise like Event 201, except this time we had 31 governments participating in this. And we still have a lot of mRNA in the pipeline of these vaccine manufacturers, Nick. Do you see any of this changing, or is this just kind of a repeat of what we've seen in the past?
Yeah, the biopharmaceutical complex remains fully operational. This is a transnational global syndicate that operates on creating the pandemics, creating the countermeasures or mRNA injections, and profiting and gaining control from both. And so they're still there. Clearly, there's individuals within our government that are trying to still solidify our relationships with the World Health Organization, unfortunately, like John Fleetwood has found. And yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. We have to remember there's thousands upon thousands of biolaboratories in the United States alone, many of which do conduct gain-of-function experiments with viruses, fungi, and bacterium. And we do not want a modified fungus to get out, that is for sure. Bill Gates himself is funding multiple biolabs across the globe. He's previously funded bird flu gain-of-function research at University of Wisconsin-Madison, illicit biolabs in Africa. So yeah, we got to be on the lookout for these illicit activities. These should be banned. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're still allowed to modify pathogens. And so now they go and run these war game scenarios, these pandemic simulations, basically in expectance of what they claim they know is coming for sure. And we have to ask, how do they know it's for sure coming? Well, the same situation as with COVID-19. Event 201, they war game it right before, literally basically the exact same scenario, and then voila, it comes out of a lab, an so-called accidental leak a few months later. So yeah, we got to be on the lookout for that.
Well, I think how do these things keep happening is a question that people may have. And you tweeted this just this week. Breaking, Bill Gates was planning pandemic simulations with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017. And we have the email chain about that. Also some interesting, talk there about neurotechnologies. We've also seen coming out of those Epstein files a lot about gene editing. Epstein was very interested in gene editing, modifying humans, all of this stuff that we just think is very Frankenstein and comes out of, it's largely been normalized by the biotech industry, but Epstein was talking about this years before we saw it hit the mainstream. And we have evidence of Bill Gates planning these pandemic simulations with Epstein all the way back in 2017. It seems like whatever network Epstein was a part of, whether he's dead or alive, I don't know, but whatever network that was is still in operation, Nick, because we keep seeing the same patterns.
Yeah, we keep seeing the same patterns. And clearly, based on those documents, it appears that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in much more than just child trafficking. and sex slavery. He was doing even child torture, and what I read in there was dismemberments of children. I mean, all sorts of terrible things. But yeah, now apparently he was involved in pandemic simulations with Bill Gates. Two people with no public health expertise, no health experience, no training in any of this stuff. So, why is a child trafficker involved in pandemic simulations? I don't know. Clearly, there was something much deeper involved there, and that really needs full-on investigation, intensive federal investigations into at least Bill Gates what was he doing with him in 2017? We got to get to the bottom of that for sure.
Right. Well, Todd Blanche has said that's it. We're done. Essentially, case closed. I beg to differ. We definitely have a lot of questions that need answers here. And the fact of the matter is, if we have someone like Bill Gates on an email exchange with Jeffrey Epstein, talking about pandemic simulations, gene editing, all of these other things, surely that person wouldn't still be welcome at the White House. But recently, Bill Gates said that he's working with President Trump on gene editing. So I'm wondering what's going on here.
Yeah, that was very disappointing. I remember seeing Gates. I believe he was right next to Melania
Yes.
Trump. Like, I mean, he's just like, how does he get there? We don't know. We don't like. So clearly, they're compromised. The executive branch is compromised, allowing these globalist individuals who would like to lessen the number of people across the globe into the White House. It's very worrisome, and hopefully we don't see him again in there. If he's in there, we know for sure that the executive branch is fully compromised. And we have to remember also that came out in the Epstein files was Bill Gates allegedly got an STD from a Russian prostitute, and wanted to secretly drug his wife with antibiotics so his wife wouldn't find out. And so, this is the type of activities these individuals are involved in.
Right. And that's just really just the tip of the iceberg from what we've seen thus far. We said yesterday that surely there would be perhaps even things that were injected into these files that were false, because if you are the self-proclaimed elites that are playing these games, you would inject false narratives into there so that people get confused and don't even know what to do with this information. However, the email exchanges, we presume, are correct, because these are the emails that were going between these people being published, and this is what's on record. I don't think they'd be falsifying emails, but perhaps there's, for example, witness testimony. Sometimes witnesses get things wrong, or sometimes you have false witnesses. But as far as some of this evidence, like the pandemic simulations go, I think we can accept that was happening. We've reported extensively over the years of Bill Gates, the UN, Epstein connections, and it's clear that these tentacles go all over the world, Nick. So back to the point of us having this conversation today, which is this breaking study. It doesn't look like we're getting any accountability. It doesn't look like there's going to be justice for this, but this is what needs to happen, because we can't be having mRNA continuing to proliferate in society when it's doing this to people. And those of us who do not consent to this gross experiment surely have some legal rights here. I mean, what does humanity need to do at this point?
Yeah, we're in a very troubling situation right now, because as all of this evidence is uncovered, we still have not seen any pandemic accountability, and they just continue to roll them out. We thought we were going to get a black box warning. We didn't even get that. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary is compromised. And so this is all very disturbing. And so that's why we are putting out reports like the one that we just put out, that are literally irrefutable proof that these injections stay in the body for years. Like, it cannot be debunked. They have no way to do this for this case. And so we're going to continue to put out reports like this. We're going to send this report to key individuals. And, the longer they just sit there and do nothing and allow these to be injected, the more trouble they will be in the future.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a lot of us who aren't letting go of this, and we're not going to stop talking about this. and people are still suffering, like this gentleman who's gone through all these tests. Very grateful to him for doing all of that. I can't imagine, I mean, I can't even imagine the cost of doing all of this and doing these studies. So to you and to the McCullough Foundation, thank you so much. Where people can find this is on Nicolas Hulscher's Substack, which is thefocalpoints.com. I just want to bring that study up again for everyone. Thefocalpoints.com, and the title is Breaking Vaccine mRNA, Plasmid DNA, and Spike Protein Can Persist in Humans More Than 3.5 Years After COVID-19 Vaccination. You can also follow Nick on X, and we really do encourage you to, at Nick Hulscher. That's at Nick Hulscher. And I guess just share this everywhere. I mean, everyone needs to know this. All of our families that fell victim to this gross experiment need to know this, and people need to get angry and demand justice. We can't let this go. We can't let them tell us it's over now, case closed, where COVID is concerned, where Epstein is concerned, where all of these things are concerned. We need answers.
Yes, we need answers, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop pushing for answers and exposing what has been happening to the globe since 2021. And we have to remember, I don't think it's going to last forever. I don't think the protection of false claims and all sorts of lies, deadly lies that were pushed by so many key individuals, I don't think they will have protection forever because the evidence is simply too undeniable.
Thank you so much for continuing to add to that body of evidence, and we'll see what lawyers come out of the woodwork with this. We definitely need legal action. Nick Hulscher, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.